Quality Act compliant today. Those mobile branches will be replaced over the next couple of years, but the remaining vehicles in the fleet, so just under 40, they're all fully Quality Act compliant, so they have disability access.
So you have mentioned there that you would be happy to expand on those that have a hearing impairment. So how easily accessible would your services be to a BSL user, for example? Are you prepared to fund a BSL interpreter if that is required? Is that something that your bank would offer?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes, but we, as you would expect, we have induction loops in all of our branches. We are building much of the content that's online. We have signers video content to convey the key elements of information. If a customer wishes to have a discussion in one of our branches using a signer, they can either bring somebody in who can work with them and communicate with us, or indeed we will provide a signer and we will cover the costs up to £200 for the provision of a signer. So there's absolutely access that way. Through our telephony channel, we use phone text and the next generation text service. So customers who avail themselves of that machinery will be able to contact our telephone centres and discuss that with us as well. So we believe we have comprehensive solutions for key disabilities, but visually impaired and hearing impaired.
I mean, you've mentioned there as well that if customers ask for it or if customers require it, I guess one of the big issues is for those who, for example, a BSL user, there are public services and quite significant public services where they've been asked, how could somebody actually get in touch to organise that meeting with a BSL signer, and they've been told, well, they can phone a number to request it. How do you know that your customers who have those requirements, how do you know that's actually being met? And this is a big challenge right across the board, not just for Lloyds Bank.
So I completely understand the nature of your question. As I mentioned earlier, where the customer has indicated they are vulnerable, or where we've entered into discussion with them around a perception of their vulnerability, we can record support needs. So one example of that would be whether the customer needed support through the use of a signer, or whether they needed longer meetings. Actually, what we see with some customers who are hearing impaired, they're obviously on a scale. And if they contact one of our centres, and if they go through the sort of standard verification, we're very happy to have a family member or a friend speak to us on their behalf.
Yeah, I mean, the people I'm talking about are people that wouldn't be able to contact you. That is the point, and I think there is a group of vulnerable customers that actually aren't even able to get past that first point of inquiry, and this is for the post office as well, and I'm sure Monzo on an online basis will have this challenge. And just wonder, I mean, do you engage with any sort of third sector representative organisations of BSL users, for example, to make sure that BSL users are aware that Lloyds is willing to provide this service, but so that initial contact can even be made?
Well, certainly we promote it. I mean, certainly if you go on our websites, it will instantly tell you, if you put in the search engine, use of sign language, it will talk about the fact that we'll provide BSL. It will talk about the fact we'll cover the costs of providing signers. So that is one route. If you do need somebody to help you speak to us on the phone, then we will obviously explain that we can provide signing services there. And if you are coming into one of our branches, if we know already, then we can set that up. We can set up the interview with a signer. If this is new news to us, then we will record the support need and we'll make sure we provide that service going forward.
Right, and is it the same for the post office and Monzo? Do all your websites have assistive technology, for example, screen readers for those who are visually impaired? And how do you support your customers to ensure that they're able to access your online services as well as any offline support that they might require? Because one of the challenges is, that I keep hearing, is that the gateway to receiving face-to-face support is often now online, whereas people may have a disability that creates that barrier to accessing that online information, they're now becoming excluded from the face-to-face world because their access has to be through some online system that they can't actually access either. I mean, what are you doing are you aware of that as an issue, and what are you doing to combat that? Because the other issue is as well that one of the comments I hear back from organisations that represent people that are excluded from these services is that, well, we had an inquiry and we didn't get any complaints, but obviously they're not able to complain because they can't get access to that online world that would enable them to even lodge a complaint or even know that the organisation was putting itself out there for feedback. So I guess my question is, how can you be confident that you are genuinely accessible to some of the most sort of hard to reach and challenged groups with engaging with both the online and offline post office service and also Monzo as well?
Who wants to go first?
Just start with that one.
Go on.
Sure. So we obviously are an online only bank. We offer no face-to-face interaction at all. We cater to the biggest disabled groups that we cater to are both those who are blind, so we have screen reader technology in our mobile apps, and also deaf people who are able to use the app. Something like 98% of our customer interactions are via in-app text chat, so sort of WhatsApp style text chat, which deaf people are perfectly able to use normally. We work very, very hard to make sure that all of our written content is accessible as possible. So we have a clear and simple mark by Fairer Finance. We have our terms and conditions are under 1,000 words. They have a reading age of, I think, 8 years old.
Right.
So we work very hard there. Our real problem is if people are not able or willing or comfortable using digital technology, it is much harder for them. And we play in a limited segment of the market in that sense.
Okay.
Mr. Kearsley, Post Office?
Yes, I think possibly the answer comes in two parts, as you mentioned, the online and the offline. I think in terms of online, what I would like to do is to come back to the committee with some more detail on this one, because I apologise, I'm not fully aware. Apart from we are compliant with the Act, we put a lot and many millions of investment into our website technology to try and make sure that every aspect, not just our financial services, but every aspect of our service is accessible to all who wish to read it or wish to see it. So I will come back with detail on that one and about how we comply. In terms of the branch world, if you like, obviously what we're talking about here are in some cases some quite small post offices in some very tiny villages dotted around the country. It is difficult in those instances to make sure that we are fully disabled accessible. However, as we talked about before with Mr. Elphick, I mean, the services that we offer on the finance side are very straightforward, cash in now. So it really is about signposting to every consumer, every customer, how they can get to the point where they can get that service. So as I mentioned about Dementia Friendly earlier, we put a lot of work and time into signposting, very clear font, so that you know, with red and white and black, as we understand it, they are the three most discernible colours. So for visually impaired, to be able to signpost where you can go to the counter, where you can queue, even trying to remove the confusion in some customers. If there's a little arrow that says queue here, people will queue right there, and you know, other people will go around them and go to the counter. So we're trying to simplify the language, really be very, very clear in how we point out access to the counter. Physical access is another one which can be quite challenging. We have a branch standards group who will go out to every single post office around the country, and they will assess for access, for wheelchair ramps, for handheld supports for customers. So really looking at the demographic mix, which is 17 million visits a week from absolutely everybody in our society, is really making sure that we're physically able to welcome them in and point them in the right direction to get the service they want. But I will come back to the committee on the website online specific
and on BSL as well.
And on BSL, absolutely.
Thank you.
Could I pick
Please,
up one point? It's just something that Tom said. about reading age. We do absolutely recognise that so much of the literature that we provide, largely we think driven by regulation and other factors, is quite complex. So we have a major programme underway. We've got 40 people working this, simply the plain English team. They're looking to reduce the reading age of all of the material coming from the bank from probably on average about 18 years old and above to 11 years. So not quite 8, but it is
eight would be
initiative.
better if you can.
Could we start at 11?
No, and I think it would help everybody, but
Yeah.
particularly those with,
Yeah.
some of these.
Well, we
disabilities.
understand for the hearing impaired, because many of them have not had the benefit of phonetics,
Yeah.
that actually sometimes interpreting
Yeah.
the written word is more challenging.
It's a different language, BSL. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning. Just on that, I'd be interested to know what you're going to do about the small print, which I think everybody in guidance and documents that they get from insurance companies and banks could benefit from